Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Barb Smutek, and welcome to the Practical Uses for Digital Storytelling webinar. Along with the Native Connections team and our SAMHSA contracting officer representatives, Maureen Madison and Jan Dunbar Cooper, we extend a warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to the Native Connections Training and Technical Assistance Practical Uses for Digital Storytelling webinar. Throughout the webinar, you may hear the acronym DSF. DSF does stand for Digital Storytelling Festival. Now, starting us off in a good way today, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you and welcome John Bird. John is an enrolled member of the Blackfeet Nation of Montana and lives at his home on the Blackfeet Reservation in the summer and in Tucson, Arizona the rest of the year. Before we get started, it is my honor and privilege to ask Mr. Bird to open our webinar today. So John?
Thank you, Barb, and welcome everyone. I'm really glad to welcome you to the webinar today on digital storytelling. You know, our people are storytellers, and our people are currently developing stories about the time that we're going through right now. And I'm sure I don't need to remind anybody, but you know, there's some pretty big stuff that's happening in the world, some big changes, you know, and I know that people have anxiety, they have fear, but we can also one of the concepts I learned on some of the other projects I worked on was opportunity thinking. That in times of crisis or chaos, there's also opportunity. And so I would just like to reframe that and have you think about, you know, what are some of the opportunities that present themselves? You know, there are some opportunities to connect with people and to, you know, to perhaps, I know one of the opportunities that I see happening, this little virus, it caused me to clean out the bottom of my trash can in my office this morning. I thought, wow, I've been trying to do that for years, and this little virus made me do it. It can bring about change that, you know, individually as humans, we never dreamed about or thought about, or we never thought possible. And so I prefer to kind of reframe it like that. It helps to reduce my anxiety if I look at it as an opportunity. And myself, you know, I always want to see opportunities that improve the lives of people in really, you know, tangible ways, you know, like income inequality, racism, sexism, all those kinds of things, you know, that we have opportunity to come out of this, you know, in a better place. So I am going to just ask you to think about your intentions. What would you like? What would you like to come out of this current stage in humanity that we're in? And we're not going to have you voice that or anything. I just want you to think about it, put it in your head, put it out there to the universe. The Blackfoot people say Istabatapil, the source of life, you know, the universal intelligence. And they interchange that with, you know, creator and things like that. And so put it out there. As I'm going to sing this song, put it out what you want to come out of this. What are the opportunities you see for us as human beings to grow, to learn, to come out on the other side better? So I'm going to sing this song. It was given to me to sing in our Blackfoot culture where I'm from in Montana. You know, we can't just go and do things. We have to be given permission or authority, or it has to be given to us or transferred to us. And so I was given the rights to this song from an elder, and it's a blessing song. I always like to sing it because it brings me calm and peace. And I think that's a very valuable commodity in in these days we're living in right now. And so I wish you all calm and peace. And, you know, this song is about love ultimately. So I send that, I share that with all of you. Oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, 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 oh, hey. Ah, hey, ah, hey, ah, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. Ah, hey, ah, hey, ah, oh, hey, ah, hey, ah, hey, ah, oh, hey. Ah, hey, ah, hey, ah, oh, hey, ah, hey, ah, hey, ah, oh, hey, ah, hey, ah, hey, ah, oh, hey, ah, hey, ah, hey. Anya, I'm going to turn it back over to Barb. Thank you.
Miigwech. Thank you so much, John. Thank you for starting us off in a good way today. I'm sure everyone appreciates, and I know I sure appreciated that relaxing song you shared with us. What a great way to start the day. So as I said earlier, my name is Barb Smutek, although on the slide it says Barbara Smutek. That's okay, though. That's what my mama calls me when I'm in trouble. And hopefully I won't be on today's webinar. But allow me to introduce myself. I am the one of the communication coordinators for the Samhsa Tribal TPA Center at Tribal Tech LLC, and I am a member of the Sault Ste. Marie Tribe of Chippewa Indians, and I'm located in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. So it's my pleasure to come to you from Michigan and be your moderator today. Next, allow me to introduce you to Janine Gaines, and Janine will say a few words about herself to introduce herself to all of you. Janine?
Bonjour Nikanek, Janine Nadeshnakas, Maskonagos, Neshnabe Noswin, Bodwad Minada, Shishibaniak, and Nibigdagwas. Hello friends, my name is Janine. My tribal name is Maskonagos, or Red Star. I'm a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation out of Shawnee, Oklahoma. I wanted to take a second just to thank Tribal Tech for inviting me to participate today. I'm really excited to share with you all the things going on in Sacramento. I am the communications manager at the Sacramento Native American Health Center, and I oversee all of our communications projects as well as supporting any special grant communications. So thank you again for having me.
Oh, Miigwech. Thank you so much for joining us today, Janine. We're really looking forward to learning from you. Next up, we have our second presenter, Marion. And Marion, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Really glad to see all the participants here this morning. My name is Marian Bickley, and I am the NAF from the Navajo Nation. I live in Arizona and am a communications coordinator with Tribal Tech, and so Janine and I are kind of similar in the work that we do, and I got a chance to really get to see all the things, wonderful things she's been doing in the community through the Circles of Care grant, and so I'm really excited that she's here, and so thank you, Janine, for coming on and helping us out. I think today is going to be really amazing and a good opportunity for everyone to participate and to kind of, you know, get some energy going, some good energy for our community, some positive energy. So I just wanted to go over, so today's objectives in this webinar, we want to explore the relationship of digital storytelling and your program goals or your program objectives. or even just your organizational goals and objectives. So exploring some of these topics, we're going to be looking at practical uses of digital storytelling. How can we make the use of this skill, the use of this tool, how can we make it a practical use for you where you're using it to be very strategic in the things that you're doing in your communities. We also want to discuss the relationship between community readiness, digital storytelling, and social marketing. And so I know those are very large concepts that we're going to be ingesting today, but we kind of want to dial them down and bring them down to a couple of simple things that we think will really help you. Also, we want to review the benefits of sharing data and positive outcomes. So talk a little bit about that. I think Janine's a really great example of that and how these outcomes can be shared in your community and outside of your community. We also want to identify a story from past years related to your Native Connections project. So we're hoping that today you can get some practical use today. So before we get started, we want to get some chat box activity going just to get you guys primed and ready to start telling your stories. But think of a Native Connections activity, experience, or outcome you would like to share with others. And go ahead and type that here on the right-hand side up above here, right next to the slide. You'll see it. And we want to see if there's any experiences or outcomes you'd like to share with others. I know when I worked on some projects, there were things like little victories that we would have. We'd have little victories in our communities, and sometimes, you know, we don't always have a newspaper. We don't always have a newsletter. And so it's really nice to have that. So Ashley Harding has mentioned and excuse me if I pronounce this wrong, Kusini Tatanuk Horse Medicine Program Development. That is amazing. Horse medicine program. So I imagine that has to do with like equine therapy or something along those lines. And I know John has a little bit of background in knowing about horse medicine therapy and how that's just kind of becoming a new tool in our toolbox to help our communities.
Yeah, here in Sacramento, you know, we focus a lot on social activities and utilizing creative ways to get people engaged. So our team, we hosted a soccer clinic for Native youth, and we're able to, when the parents brought the youth, give them suicide prevention and mental health information. So really just using social activities to share our message.
Yeah, and it's a really quick, easy way to report on little, you know, big victories or little victories, or, you know, even to just kind of describe some of the things you want to do, like maybe a visioning or a GONA. I've seen a lot of really great digital stories showcasing information that might take, you know, an hour to explain or to talk about, or, you know, but being able to capture that within 2 or 3 minutes is great. I still see some typing. We got some chat box activity still happening. So Melanie Stevens says, we have a traditional teaching and knowledge classes, and we're using traditional plant knowledge. Wow. You know, and that's really cool information, not only for right now to report on and to kind of expand and talk about, but also for future to capture that, you know, 10, 20 years down the line, to be able to reflect back and talk about that and be able to have that recorded, you know, that moment in time recorded. And so it looks like people are still joining in and still looking. So if you guys want to, we'll leave that chat box open for a little bit if you guys want to still add to that. And remember, it's just, you know, it'll be there. We got one more typer. And we'll move on to the next slide.
All right. So I'm going to talk to you about the different types of digital stories. And one thing that just popped in my mind right now as I'm looking at the chat box, and Melanie mentioning the knowledge classes and all those things, especially at a time like this, you know, when we are social distancing, having stories and digital stories is so important to share information. So when we look at the types of digital stories, there are several different types. I think sometimes when we think of digital storytelling, we might think of one person talking. And there are personal narratives, elder digital stories, stories that focus on one family, but you can also use digital stories for community stories, sharing what your organization is doing. Digital stories can be used to share resources, to do outreach, to explain something to other people. And in addition, as you're looking at these digital stories, all your stories should have a purpose. So whether that's to explain, inform, instruct, or examine, there should be a purpose around your story. So as you're coming up with ideas and thinking about what you might want to do, think about what stories you tell already. When you're sharing information with people, what are you already saying? Do those things fit into one of these types of stories, or does it fit into this purpose? And how can you use what you're already doing to be the basis of these stories you're going to create?
Awesome. And so we have a few other people sharing. Caroline Ramos typed in, FNA has done a youth summit where we've had the community come together and to explain what they have to offer the youth. This last year was our second year, and we focus on historical trauma. So I think that, fits right into what Janine was just talking about, and kind of what we want to explore today is that digital storytelling, you can use it to explore and to talk about, or to explain an idea, explain a concept, explain a program, explain a cultural perspective, or even inform people. So you can use digital stories to inform individuals about your community, about a person, or about a particular challenge in your community. You can also use digital stories to instruct, which, is really important when you think about instructing and building that awareness within the community. Like, for instance, what's going on now, like instructions. I've seen so many wonderful little posts of how you can properly wash your hands, and these are things that some people might have never known before. And so using digital storytelling is a really great way to use that. And then there's also useful for examining. Maybe there's something particular happening in your community and you want to examine that. And so when we think about it in terms of community awareness, you can use digital storytelling to raise community awareness by raising awareness by explaining an idea, a topic, or a service, or you can inform the public of new information or educate about specific health concerns or challenges. And then on the social marketing side, you can also use digital stories to examine community climates, attitudes, or needs, which is a huge benefit for using digital stories. You can also use it to instruct for emergency situations or community protocols. And so we're hoping that you guys can kind of see today, to keep this as a primer in the back of your mind, that there is a relationship here on how you can use digital storytelling to do just exactly those things.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the goals of social marketing. So social marketing is a practice of using marketing principles to change behavior. So my team at SNAC, who's on the call right now, they've heard me say a million times, social marketing is, instead of us selling diamonds or shoes, we're selling the importance of healthy eating or not stigmatizing people with mental health challenges. We're using those same principles, but really changing behavior. And really what we've been looking at recently in social marketing is not just telling people what to do, but really looking at what's going on in people's lives and making it easier for them to make those changes. The goals that we have listed here for social marketing are really focused on some of the SAMHSA grants that you guys are all working on. So positively influencing behaviors that benefit individuals and communities, increasing awareness of child and youth mental health and wellness, communicating the needs for coordinated services, and promoting increased access to mental health and wellness services. But we can see those goals kind of throughout everything that you're working on. Really looking at how do we increase awareness about any of the causes that we're working on and coordinating those services between different organizations.
But I want you to remember that social marketing isn't just for a specific one thing, you can add in there, just like the CRA model, you can add in there the topic that you choose to promote or choose the behavior you choose to change. So, here on the goals of social marketing, it says positively influence behaviors that benefit individuals and community, increase awareness of child and youth mental health and wellness. So your topic might not be increased awareness of child and youth mental health and wellness issues. It might be increased awareness of prevention services related to suicide. So you definitely can change the topic and use the same strategies. And so definitely we would love for you to kind of take ownership of those materials that we have.
Do a poll just to see how you are currently using social marketing strategies. So the poll box should be up. So the question or the statement is, we currently use social marketing strategies for our Native Connections project. So you can answer, I am somewhat knowledgeable about social marketing, or I would like more information about social marketing. You can go ahead and fill out that poll. Just in general, as I mentioned, we have been utilizing social marketing here at the Sacramento Native American Health Center, and really we'll be watching one of our digital stories later, but the digital stories that we can create, those fit really well into social marketing. It's kind of like your own commercial, and nowadays with social media and YouTube, you don't have to pay for airtime anymore. So you're able to utilize these digital stories to really promote your message, to really create that behavior change. So it looks like votes are still coming in on the poll, but we are looking about close to a 60-40 split, 60 people liking more information about social marketing. And
yeah, and I think like a lot of times people, one of the misconceptions about social marketing is that it can be confused with social media, which is like Facebook, Twitter, Google. Those are, well, not Google, but Google Plus and Snapchat. Like that's social media. And so social marketing is actually the merging of the concepts of marketing principles and public health. And so you're targeting behavior change, just like what Janine had said earlier, that we're not selling a product as far as like, a good, but we're selling a behavior change, whether that's, checking in with a loved one, whether it's self-care, it's basically trying to, or even just coming to a service and meeting a service provider. That's the basis of social marketing. And so looking at this, I think one of the things that I would love to do is to provide the GTAs with a little more support and resources for social marketing, and so that you guys feel better supported in that aspect. So we have another chat box activity, which we're going to pull up on the top here. And so just to keep that good energy going, that talking energy, that meeting energy, we want to ask you this poll question here of who would benefit the most from hearing this story in your community, and is there a specific audience that you would want to meet with, or you would want to hear this story? So when you think about social marketing and you think about behavior change, a lot of times, and some guiding questions that you can have are, who is affected the most by the challenges that you're facing in your community? Whether that's sobriety or just accessing services, if it's a father, if you think it's grandparents, thinking about that of who would the audience be for your digital story. And so if you're thinking about your digital story, this is a potential way to kind of plug it. If you are struggling in your community with funding issues or sustainability issues, then it might be your audience needs to be someone higher up. And so maybe it might be tribal chairs, it might be a community at large and leadership. Yeah, so it might be leadership who needs to really focus and hone in on the messaging. So you could use a personal narrative of someone who's used the services, who's used all of your the opportunities that your program, your organization, or your project has afforded, and maybe they have a really good turnout, or maybe they're having really good results, and so you want to report on that, but you want leadership to know about that. So thinking about that, you know, there's also something called the secondary audience, and so, you know, that might be someone who is affected by the first person. So they might be the gatekeepers. So for instance, in my community, there's a gatekeeper I can think of, and her name is Carrie Dallas. And she just knows everybody. And, you know, for her, she's an elder. She's she's probably, she's still working, and she's still doing good community work, and she volunteers a lot. And so thinking about her, she's a gatekeeper. And so if I targeted her, she would be able to get that message out to people that she talks to as well. So thinking about it in that strategic way. And Janine, is there any way that you guys have selected audiences to focus in on when you're developing digital stories?
Yeah, I think that when we look at targeting our audience, you do want it to be as narrow as possible and figure out that one person that you're talking to. And what are their challenges, what are they going through, and what needs to be addressed. You know, for instance, in Sacramento, if we're talking about doing something for Native youth, there is a difference between Native youth in this urban area who are really tied to their culture and who are really have relationships with the elders and already know a lot about what it means to be a Native youth in Sacramento. And there are also Native youth that don't. So when we talk about culture as prevention, what does that look like to a youth who doesn't have a connection to the culture right now? So we always have to look at, even in these buckets of like youth or parents, there are differences there as well and things that you need to consider. So for us, you know, our team is great that maybe we're putting out, hey, culture is prevention, and at the same time making it easier for people who aren't connected to then get connected. So you just always want to look at, even within your audience, what are those micro targets as well, because they have different things going on and would respond differently to your message.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think those are some really, really good points, Janine. I think a lot of times it's easy to target, we're just targeting the community, but I think when you do hone it in a little bit, and you do have that little focus, it does have a payoff in the long run. Two-Spirit and rural remote villages, yeah, and I think that's perfect, Gary. Like thinking about that urban Native youth, 24 and younger. That Two-Spirit and rural remote villages, what does that look like? You know, being that would look completely different than a Two-Spirit living in an urban setting. I mean, they might have a lot of similar challenges, but I think the differences in resources, the differences in community, the differences in acceptance maybe, I think that's like a huge thing, is just to make those considerations of when you're doing that, like what Janine said, the micro audiences, or you have a targeted, selected audience. So that's a really great point. And so as we look here in social marketing, and we're trying not to go so much into a lot of detail. We're trying to kind of stay topical in social marketing and digital storytelling, and trying to keep these connected. But social marketing has 3 strategies to affecting behavior change. So you're trying to change someone's behavior patterns. You're trying to encourage someone to participate in different behaviors than they're usually participating in. There's 3 strategies, and those 3 strategies are education, implementation, and policy-based. And so think about that really quickly of, the programming that you're doing right now. A lot of you might be doing system approaching, which is more so on the policy and implementation based. It might also be an education based. And so when we look at that, an education based strategy might be, I'll take a really easy example, and that's, like today, we know that you should stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands, it takes 60 seconds, sing a song when you're washing your hands. And that's just a simple education piece that is helping us take care of each other and take care of ourselves. And so that's a simple social marketing message for, your programming for suicide prevention. That might look like, I don't have an example right offhand, but to think about that of, doing a self-check every morning, or checking in with a partner, or having a buddy that you consider talking to about certain things, or even checking in with your partner or spouse. That might be something you tell community members to do. And implementation is also an action-based. So what can you do to help? If this is more of like the empowerment stage and empowerment phase of social marketing, when you're thinking about how are we going to get someone to do this action? And so you're addressing a motivation there. So we talked about washing hands. Well, the implementation is, I want you to buy, or I want you to make sure that you have this type of hand soap in your house. That's an implementation kind of thing, where you're making sure that they're doing this one thing of, this is not only how you wash your hands, but you should wash your hands. And by taking care of yourself, you're taking care of others. And so you're kind of motivating them to do something. And, a policy base would be something that is required. So, for instance, you guys might be teleworking, and that's a policy that has been enacted. Maybe it's not even a policy. Maybe it's going to be drafted into a policy of like, well, how do we handle, emergency situations? How do we handle different things? Are we essential? How do we determine essential? And so a lot of that is policy-based of like, how can we affect greater change and greater behavior change to the community through policy. And so that might look different ways. For suicide prevention, it might be, enacting a QPR training every year for tribal leaders. That might be requesting or requiring teachers, or presenting to the school board to have teachers participate in a free mental health first aid training. And so those are just some examples that you can do to help explain, inform, instruct, or examine. And so, creating that buy-in using digital stories, you can do that. It's just, so we're hoping that you're kind of going to, I know these are a little bit broad as far as how I'm explaining it, but just to remember, education-based approach raises awareness by providing information. Implementation-based calls on the audience to perform a specific task or behavior, and a policy-based approach is a policy or a law that enforces the desired behavior. So just remember, explain, inform, instruct, examine.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the community readiness levels and the community readiness assessments and how that affects your social marketing strategy. So when we look at the community readiness assessment, SNAC created one, I believe it was about 1.5 years ago, and I have to give all props to the SNAC team because I actually did not help with the community readiness assessment, but it did totally determine the work that we did with social marketing. So the dimensions of the community readiness assessment are community efforts, community knowledge about the efforts, leadership, community climate, community knowledge about the issue, and resources related to the issue. And as we look at each of those dimensions, there's either no awareness, denial or resistance, vague awareness, or pre-planning. And as we look at those different levels, that will determine how we raise awareness or create change in the community through social marketing. What principles are we using? So an example of this would be, we might sit in a room and say, hey, we have an issue with suicide in our community amongst young people, and we, need to get the number out there. The youth need to be calling the suicide prevention number. That's the most important thing to do. But you might do a readiness assessment and see that the youth aren't ready to make that call, and the parents aren't talking to the youth about it. So that would change your strategy, because instead of raising awareness about the number, you really need to increase help-seeking behaviors and let people know it's okay to reach out for help. So that would be a totally different strategy. So I'm going to, if I can remember how to share my screen, this first monitor. Okay, so this is our a copy of our community readiness assessment and social marketing plan. So we thought it was really important for us to do this together because they fit so well hand in hand. So I'm just going to scroll through real quick to show you all. And as I said, huge props to the team at SNAC who worked on this, interviewing people throughout the community, our evaluation team kind of bringing all the information together. So we talked through how we did that and looking at the stages of awareness in the community and what that means. So, no awareness all the way up to high level of community ownership. And this is on the SNAC website if anyone wanted to see it. But so we have the results from the different areas. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So you'll see in our next steps that we said, moving forward, because this is for our Circles of Care project, we'll be using dimensions B, E, and F to develop the social marketing plan. So we looked at what was needed most and where we could make those changes to create our plan. And then with our social marketing plan, we had our goals, our target audience, how we were evaluating, and created this guide for, okay, here's what we're going to do for these different areas. So honestly, I could not have done the work that we did in social marketing without the efforts of the team to, find out where the community was and make sure, you see we have our key down here, so to make sure that we knew exactly where the community was at and the best ways to reach them.
Yeah, and I went and posted that year report that you just shared, Janine, on the web link. So if you guys wanted to see and really examine and see how they used it in their social marketing and how they also use digital storytelling, you can see it in the year one report. That's linked there at the bottom.
Awesome. So I think we have another chat box activity. How can your community or program benefit from sharing data or positive outcomes via your digital story?
I think that when you can inform your community about positive things, I think a lot of times one of the main messages that I get from youth is that they don't like being labeled as a statistic, and that's just my own personal data collection. It's not nothing quantified or anything like that, but a lot of the comments that I get when working with youth is that they don't like the deficit-based mentality, and a lot of times the information they're receiving isn't from them. And so I feel like, when you're doing digital storytelling, a lot of times it is strength-based. It is enforcing the protective factors. It is reporting on the resiliency in the community. And, it's empowering when you can even be the person who is voicing and expressing your personal story. So I think that's like some of the positives that I've seen. Scott Barton has said, reach a broader and younger audience. And Lisa McCall, our goal is to inspire peer-to-peer learning and gatekeeping.
Yeah, and Marian, just to go off what you were saying, I think that definitely comes up as you work on these digital stories, obviously not doing it in a vacuum and getting the community involved, because we've heard that as well, that, the youth, they're tired of hearing, oh, we're like the lowest in this, or we're the worst in that, and all those things, and really shaping how we discuss things based on what the community wants to hear. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and I feel like, storytelling is an innate part of our history and a part of our cultures. That's how we learn, that's how we ingest. I love hearing Barb Aragon talk about that, and she'll be talking about what did she say? We story primes stories. That's what she says. And, she says a lot of other things and primes a lot of other things and talks about how storytelling really helps us understand and connect. So Melanie Stevens says, we would like to bring the youth, family, and elders together to learn and grow through plant medicine classes we bring to the community. So a platform to learn together, encourage community. It seems that sharing would serve to personalize and put a face on how our efforts are actually making the impact on youth community, especially in a community where awareness can vary so much. And that's so true. I'm thinking about it now, and how often do you see our programs being in the local newspaper? When I worked at the local urban center here in Flagstaff, I often had to go and hunt down all of the newspapers and tell them all the things we were doing. Whereas with digital stories, we would put a digital story together and run it on our monitors in our waiting rooms at our mental health facility, our behavioral health facility, and our family health center, and also our wellness center. And we would just run those digital stories on there while people were waiting in the lobbies or just enjoying their day. They would be able to see this news, and so sharing it on YouTube, on our Facebook platforms. It really was a good primer.
Yeah, and in the comment box, Rebecca Hammer says, data sharing, storytelling builds trust and makes results more tangible, which definitely people have a chance to really see themselves, see the community, and have that deeper understanding.
One of my community shared risk and protective factors, like how culture plays a role in healing. Yeah, and there's a lot of information that I feel like our community, the knowledge our communities have, I feel like digital storytelling kind of opens up that platform and makes it wider and gives more space to give that information. There's a lot of information that can be learned in just 2 or 3 minutes using video, using pictures, using a story. A recent podcast on engaging new youth. So Hunter, we do have a Native Connections podcast. If you guys haven't listened to that, it's really good stuff. I binged all of the episodes. They're like 10 minutes long. So if you guys haven't had a chance to look at that podcast, definitely go listen to it. I think that BC and the team have done just a wonderful job of talking about different factors that you guys might be experiencing, different challenges, and kind of the storytelling. Again, it's just another medium to tell that story. And we have a comment here, I think from Hunter, where he said you can also engage the community by helping them develop a digital story, giving them the tools and empowering them to be storytellers. I think that's such a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Everything that we work on, should be grounded in the community so that they have that buy-in. And as we saw with our community readiness assessment, we are community members, and so we do understand a little bit, but we don't understand it all. And really getting different perspectives, to see where people are and what they're feeling. Sometimes in your building, you're closer to it than other people are, and it's easy to forget that. So making sure that you are amplifying the community voice as much as possible is very important.
Yeah, and I think that's also a really great thing about digital storytelling is that you're showcasing the community as the experts. And a lot of times in our traditional, knowledge, our traditional ways, like we go to the elders for knowledge and for that. And so in the way things are right now, someone like me, I'm in my 30s and I'm the one that's developing work products and doing these things, and it's like I really have just a little tiny amount of any wisdom that, just a little bit compared to somebody who's lived and seen a lot more and faced challenges and overcome challenges for a lot longer than I have. And I think when you can showcase those people as experts and, you know, even the youth, empowering them to what their vision of wellness is or what they experience in their communities, and you showcase them as the real experts, I think that's so important. Building trust, hope, and faith in a program is critical for buy-in and support when your program is transparent with data and focuses on positive messaging via digital storytelling. That's from Dave Braveheart.
And I want to highlight something that Catherine said, the sharing may work to bring together those who are not connected, and that is so important. You know, there are people who might not walk into your building or into your program yet at this time because they just have not been connected yet. They might not feel it's for them. So being able to open those doors through digital storytelling is really important. That's a great point.
So as we move forward, we're going to be showing the next few slides. We're going to be actually showing and showcasing some digital stories, which includes Snacks digital story, and Janine will be able to give you a little bit of information on how they developed that, how they designed that, how they came up with the concepts, different things like that.
My road through addiction and to recovery. My husband and I married in 1980. We have 6 children. We were so in love, and I couldn't believe I married the guy I went to school with in elementary. He was in the Army at the time, then finished his year and came home. I was so happy to have my soldier home for good. Then things started to change. My soldier started drinking and getting abusive. I love him so much that I endured it all and stayed with him for the sake of our children. While he was on one of his drinking sprees, he was in an automobile accident and he was the driver. He was charged and given 5 years and ended up doing 9. My heart fell to my feet when my father told me. I couldn't find myself to seeing him or talking to him. I could only think about our children and how they were going to be hurt. I had to step up and make sure our children were taken care of. I got a job. My father and mother helped me. I didn't ask too much from them or from my family. I didn't want to be a burden. I felt so lost without my husband and missed him so much. I knew my kids felt the same thing. So I started shielding them from everything that could hurt them. Life was a challenge for me in my ways, and I started drinking. My family stepped in and took my children. I was even more lost, so I kept drinking. I didn't want to feel the pain that I was feeling being sober. Drinking kept me numb. I met a guy in 1988. He filled one of the parts I was missing. We had a little girl together. I later left him in 1992. He started getting very abusive. At the time, my husband was already out of prison. We made amends and got back together. I remember telling our children and seeing the smiles back on their faces. Things went good for a while once again, and then the drinking started along with the drugs. Like before, I ended up all over again, trying not to feel the hurt coming on. He's in and out of prison while my children and I are trying to survive. I made my mind up and went head on. I couldn't endure anymore and let him know there is no more. He got out for the last time, telling our children and I he was never going back, not knowing what he meant. All the drinking that night had a hold on him. The rage he had with inside him. The abuse started, it seemed to be stronger and more violent. I could hear my children begging their father to stop. Then came silence. Waking up in the hospital, the police came in telling me my husband was shot and killed, feeling my heart pounding with rage and hurt. Asking the police, "What did you do?" swinging at them. I wanted my children. I couldn't cope with everything that happened. I turned to meth and other drugs, falling with full force, losing everything, including my children, not caring anymore about life. I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. Going to jail and rehab didn't help. It wasn't what I wanted. I would start feeling the pain again. I continued using, not looking at my children and the pain they were feeling. Seeing my son going in and out of DT, lost without a father and mother, seeking a place to belong. I continued using and got busted sitting in jail again, not knowing why until the next day. I couldn't see my children suffering anymore. They needed me. This is the day I realized I have an addiction and I wanted help. I stayed in jail and went into treatment, wanting everything they had to offer. I started to feel again, which was scary, and opening up, accepting what happened to my husband wasn't my fault, and realizing I could let go of the guilt and the blame I was carrying with me all these years. My family and children are my supports and my higher power. I started moving forward, feeling good about myself and life. I now work at the treatment center I was in and enjoy it. I made the choice of moving closer to my son that is in a juvenile secure in Salt Lake City, Utah, and is doing the best he can. I drive from there to Fort Duchesne for work. I live a clean life and live every moment of it with my children.
Powerful digital story. You know, I just, you know, it really brings that message of, you know, the community is going through a lot, and a lot of times it brings realities of maybe why they're struggling and going through addiction. It also informs that there's hope in it, you know, and not only that, but it highlights the work that the community has been putting in to create those programs, and now that she's, you know, in recovery and that she's doing all the things, that she's able to be a support for others who might be facing similar things, or even, you know, those who think that there's no hope for them. So the next digital story, and I see comments that are coming up, but I haven't read them. Touching and powerful. Thank you for sharing that touching story with us. The next one is a personal impact statement, and it's to talk about community. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Chance Brown, and I'm from the Viejas Band of Kumeyaay Indians. Suicide is no joke. In Native American and Alaska Native youth, suicide is the second leading cause of death, and it is 2.5 times the national average. Last summer, me and my cousin would always work out together. I always remember having a good time with him because afterwards we would go and get burritos at our favorite burrito shop. But once school came around, I wasn't able to work out with him as much. Due to my schoolwork and weight training class, I was too tired. I didn't think anything of it at the time until the morning he shot himself. I was too shocked to even react once I heard. So, I'd like to propose a suicide counseling program where Native youth have the chance to talk themselves through their problems and feel welcomed. There's a problem for Native youth, but I'm confident that if the counseling was available for them, it would lower the rates of suicide significantly. If I had to say something about myself, is I like to make and see people smile, because on the inside, I feel lonely. Thank you for your time.
One is going to be Janine Gaines' video, and so if she would like to talk a little bit more, that would be great.
Yeah, so this is a video that we did as a part of the Directing Change Youth Film Contest. Directing Change is a part of Each Mind Matters, California's mental health movement, and it's a digital storytelling contest where youth create PSAs about either mental health or suicide prevention. What's really exciting about this contest is they have a lot of youth-friendly information to ensure, obviously, responsible storytelling and really giving the youth more information about the issue at hand. And so this was totally youth-led. We worked with, Sacramento has Native Youth Ambassadors who help lead and guide our programs. So we worked with the Native Youth Ambassadors as well as Sacramento Sister Circle, which is a talking circle for young women in the community. So we were able to work with those two groups, and the youth were interested, were able to create this story.
We are the future.
But some of our Native youth go through struggles in life, like domestic violence, substance abuse, trauma, and suicide.
But there is hope. We all have the power to stop suicide in our own communities by learning the warning signs, reaching out to those who might be struggling, and connecting them to resources.
Our community has spiritual leaders and elders that are resilient and why we are here today. Our medicine carries our prayers to Creator to guide us in the right direction.
Our ceremonies will live on. Our cultures will continue to stand in history. Our stories will eventually end, but not today. The community needs all of our voices. We are traditional dancers.
Resilient. Powerful.
We are the answer to our ancestors' prayers.
Okay, I'll go. Thank you. So the youth, it was totally youth created. They wrote the script. If you were able to hear the audio, they were the ones singing. An elder came and taught them a song. So that's the girls who worked on the video that's been singing. And really, they wanted to focus on, as Mary and I had discussed earlier, not the deficits in the community, but the strength and resiliency that they have. And that's the story that they wanted to put forth.
I think it's so cool how youth are often so optimistic and hopeful, and it's something that is refreshing. I really like that digital story. The next digital story is sharing data and positive outcomes. So this one is a little bit more along the vein of data sharing, like how can you use your the data that you've collected and how can you report that back to the community. And so this was done by the Pueblo of Acoma and the suicide prevention walk that they hosted. And so Engaging ways to share information, and this is a very non-threatening way to share that information, and for them to report on their findings, you know, to show that they're working toward prevention, and I think it's great. I'm gonna read some of these comments when they come through. And so, Janine, is there any do you have any tips for how to share data using digital storytelling, possibly?
Yeah, I know we're going to be talking in a little bit about the benefits of digital storytelling, but really these stories can be used in so many different ways. As I said earlier, you know, we don't have to buy ad time. You know, social media is a great tool to share things. You know, one of the participants was talking about how they are, you know, doing work with like traditional medicines, and we actually just posted a video that we literally just did it on my phone, and I posted it from my phone, that was shared over 300 times and got, you know, 12,000 impressions. So really, we were able to reach so many people through doing something by video than, just having a class. So it's great in that way. For the video that we just showed here, we are, as I mentioned, it was a part of Directing Change. So that platform in itself is going to help support spreading the message. The video was sent to all county mental health offices in Sacramento, or not in Sacramento, I'm sorry, in California. So every county has access to that video. So when they're working with Native people, to be able to share that. It also, we sent it to all of our partners and different tribes in the area that wanted to use it. We also have a partnership with Sac Republic, our local soccer team, and showed the video during the opening of the Native Heritage Night game that they had. So yes, for the Native people in the community, but there were 11,500 people in the audience that were able to see it. We've used the video when we have town halls with the community to talk about what we're working on. So town halls, different meetings, and then obviously, this is the youth video, so they're able to use it any way they see fit, whether it's through school or sharing with other youth and other partners. So really it's something that has community ownership and that everyone is able to use to share our message.
Absolutely. And just reading some of the comments, I appreciated that the info was shared alongside a prevention event to show the info and what is being done to support the community. And so just like Janine said, there's a huge opportunity to use this. I mean, this program, I think this happened, I'm not sure what year, Connie, you have to let me know, but we're looking at it in 2020 and still being inspired and still being able to see data from that place, from that location, and it, and so for that to be, again, captured in the moment in time to have something to reflect back on. And so maybe they could do a similar data, digital storytelling with data in it and make that comparison in 5 or 10 years. And that would be something to kind of compare and contrast, like, this is where we started, this is where we're at, and this is where we're at in the readiness levels, things like that. I also saw one that says numbers do work and stating which town our people are being discussed, or people are being discussed. So numbers do work. I think that this information would be relevant not only for community members, but, thinking about the audience. This also would be great for tribal leaders to see that they would see that this is seeing all those people at this event, seeing that, the community really does support this effort. The community really does. They are champions for suicide prevention. I think that's really cool to see at a leadership level for them to see what the priorities are. So imagine showing this before you give a presentation about a policy for, something that you're trying to present in, on a tribal level for policy, and how this could support that, that effort or that drive. So great work. So on here, we're going to talk a little bit about benefits of digital storytelling. And so benefits of digital, I feel like there's so many benefits, and you guys had highlighted a lot of them in talking about, engaging the community, reporting data, how can you use it for social marketing. So we're hoping that you got something out of today's webinar. Really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate all of your input, but hopefully you got out of it. Number one, practical uses include the ability to explain, inform, instruct, or examine. Hold on 1 minute, I'm sorry. I had a technical difficulty there, my apologies. But also explaining and exploring how digital stories can really tie into community readiness scores, or raising awareness in specific issues, or addressing certain challenges, or even reporting on good things that are going on. And then the social marketing activities of how can we use this to raise our CRA score, our community readiness assessment score. How do we raise that? And then also, touching on the fact that community members can become contributors of community wellness by sharing their lived experiences. So we saw those videos of just those powerful testimonies and impacts of what these participants or these people were going through, and just, you know, how their wellness journey has brought them to this point in time. And, you know, you can use digital stories to reduce stigma, to increase compassion, embracing trauma and promoting healing, promoting and strengthening culture, and giving communities, members and community new skills. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Janine, who's going to kind of talk a little bit about the benefits that she's seeing using digital stories. And so you guys saw that We Are digital story, and I think it's just, when you see all the work they've done, it's just amazing how they've been able to just kind of do all these different things and using these different avenues.
Yeah, I mentioned it a couple minutes ago, just the different avenues that we've used it. But as I said, you know, social media is a huge tool to help share your message. And even just from a grant perspective, I do want to highlight social media has tools that you can track, so you are able to share that information with your grant funder when you're reporting. You can say, you know for a fact how many people saw your video or how many people shared it. So it's a great way to reach a lot of people. And then also, as I mentioned, you know, just the community ownership. You know, that's not my video. You know, I don't own that. The youth who worked on it own it, and they're able to use it to share with their community circles, as well as with other people who might be struggling. So it really is a way to take your message and what you're trying to share, what you're trying to inform, instruct, or examine about, and share it with more people than you would be able to reach in any other way. So that's just a really great way to utilize these stories, just making that connection with other people. And as I said, you know, having the youth involved and the community involved in making the story, it's authentic, it's their voice, and the community is going to have more buy-in and ownership because they were able to see themselves as a part of this project.
Awesome. So we hope you guys got to see that, and I want to plug all of our resources that we have linked here in the webinar. So we have the web links here, which, you know, have the digital stories in there, and we will make sure that those are also on the Native Connections website, the digital storytelling website. And so thinking about that, we also have the download files here, which is today's PowerPoint, if you want to take that. Practical uses for digital storytelling template. So if all those questions that we had asked in the chat box, all of the polling questions, and then some of the social marketing information is going to be on that template. So I highly encourage you to download that and use that to kind of formulate your ideas or even strengthen what you have been working on for the digital storytelling festival. If you're involved in that, I hope you are. We're looking forward to this. And then also that social marketing template. And so based on some of the feedback, it looked like about, you know, 60–70% of you wanted more information on social marketing, and so we'll make sure to work with your GTAs to provide some resources for you. And again, to plug, we do also have the recorded webinars, and so we'll try to get those out for you, and, you know, if it makes sense, we'll put it on the social marketing page. But I just wanted to also show you the new, some updates that we've added to the website. So here's the website here, and if you want to learn more about Janine Gaines, we've created a page for her that you can open up from the home page there. And so it highlights the We Are, that it's actually an award-winning digital story developed by Janine and youth. And so here's Janine, as well as a secondary Native American heritage promotional video that they made in conjunction with, I believe it was a soccer team. And Janine can talk a little bit more about that, and just kind of gives her a little bit of her background, and then also some links for the SNAC website where you can also download that SNAC report and then also the SNAC YouTube channel. And SNAC stands for Sacramento Native American Health Center.
That's right.
So I had to think about that. So definitely, we also have last year's submissions for the Digital Storytelling Festival. And we also have information and submission guidelines. So if you guys want to look at those, we have video facts, anything you might need to kind of get it. But we also have digital story examples right here. And so you'll see some more examples, and we'll add the examples from today into this so that you guys have more of resources to kind of pull from and look at. And again, I highly recommend you look at that SNAC Year 1 report, or that 1 year report. I think it's fantastic. It goes through, I think it's amazing. Every time I look at it, I'm blown away. So definitely look at that, and then also the podcast. And in the meantime, if you have any questions or closing comments, I don't know if Janine, if you wanted to add anything, or John wanted to add anything, you're more than welcome to.
Marion, this is Tony. I'd like to add access to the Digital Story Festival website. I have been emailing those that have registered for the webinar prior to, throughout, and will continue to do that. We had a great number of attendees today, and so check your junk mail or your email. You should be receiving an invitation to access that resource. If you have a Microsoft account, you should be able to go right through. If you have something like Gmail, Yahoo, or another account, just go through the create a Microsoft account, and it'll create an alias for your Gmail or your Yahoo, and you'll be able to access the website as well. My personal information is there to continue to try and gain you access to those wonderful resources and things covered about the website today. Thanks, Marion.
I see there's some people typing. If you have
Hi,
any questions, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. This is Mark. I just added the podcast link for the other podcast in the web links box and in the chat box as well. So if you miss it, you can just scroll up on the right side, go back and get that link, or check the link in the middle of the page.
We have a question in the chat box. I appreciated the info that was shared. Do you all know if grantees have plans of how they'll be doing digital storytelling with community members during physical social distancing, safer at-home era? Oh, this is a good question. So currently we do have a TA event, and I'm sure GTAs might be able to speak to this a little bit more than I can. But we do have a digital storytelling event that we were planning for, I believe, in April, and that's been since pushed back to June or July. And so we've actually been brainstorming, our team here have been brainstorming on how can we develop materials for online learning using various platforms that we have. And so some of that, Barbara Aragon is a part of that processing and teams. I don't think she's on the call today, but we were talking about possibly doing some primers, like maybe having a phone call conversation to start working on stories, and then doing like a talking circle about this, or a story circle where we listen to each other's stories, and doing that. So we've started brainstorming already, and I don't know if any of the grantees do. I don't know. Grantees, if you're on the call right now, and if you have any suggestions, or if you guys are doing anything with that in regards to social distancing, and I see multiple people are typing. One option is if you have prompts or questions you wanted to ask them, an option might be for them to use a voice recording app on their phone, voice memos for iPhone as an example, and give them tips for how to record their voice, and then they can record and send that to you. Absolutely, Peyton, that's a great, I actually use my iPhone to record all of the audio on my digital stories, and it's actually really good and clear and crisp. Sometimes I'll go into my car in the garage and record because I feel like it's my little sound booth. So that's a great idea. And all the lines are unmuted, so if you wanted to make a comment, you definitely can.
Hi, Marion. This is Barb. I did just want to point out that anyone who is receiving the Native Connections TTA Center e-blast, information does come out via email, and an e-blast did just go out on the National Drug and Alcohol Fact Sheet, which had some ideas for ways of doing things online and having events where how to do it virtually when people are you know, staying home or are not participating in person.
So today, Lisa McCall. Lisa, what community are you from? Today, our youth council will be engaged on creating short digital stories, engagement material for Instagram around self-care during COVID-19. Stay tuned. Follow at SIHB1970. And then I'm assuming that's on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, go follow them right now. And that's the Seattle Indian Health Board. Oh, that's awesome. But it's such a great idea. And you know what's funny is I feel like technology and social media is like just like a first language for youth. So Stephanie's saying is that I love that. That's something we're thinking of doing, but kind of unsure of how to implement, going to follow. So if you want to see how they do it and get some ideas on how to use that platform, you know, I feel like this is also kind of a good time to start plugging to your tribal leaders or your organizational leaders to start a social media policy. I know some communities are very strict when it comes to social media and how you use it, but this might be a great time to really plug and push those social media policies. Do you have information available that is provided to participants on safe messaging? Actually, you know, I don't think that we have any in our toolkit right now, but I will say the Portland Indian Health Board, they are the ones who do We Are Native. They do really great safe messaging webinars, and if I can find those links, I will write that down and send it to your GTAs, and then they can be a source of resources for you. So I'll write that down. But they do a whole thing about safe messaging, also how to address when youth might come and reach you know, sometimes there's some crisis on social media, and they go into detail about that, but it's really, really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that Know the Signs has a lot of great information. So they're the ones who do the Directing Change contest. I believe their website is suicideispreventable.org. And while it's not Native specific, we did take their messaging and run it by our community advisory groups, and they were fine with us utilizing that. So that's a great resource as well.
Awesome. We'll make sure to include all that. And again, I'll make sure to get these to your GTAs, and they can go ahead and work with you guys. This may be my second workshop about digital storytelling. I would love to learn more about digital storytelling. Where do I go to get the basics? So, Catherine, we're really glad that you're on here. I would recommend going on to our SharePoint site. We do have a digital storytelling guide on there. And we have actually a few of them. We have quite a few resources for you to use. So if you go to our website, let me share my screen if I'm able, and I can show you where you can get that. And also if you need access for that, definitely connect with Tony Curtis. He's our SharePoint guy. He makes sure that everything runs smoothly on there. And so let me show you where that is on our website. So we developed this website for you guys to use for Native Connection grantees. And we do have a tab up here that says Digital Storytelling Resource Guide. When you click on there, it'll take you down, and it talks about processing here. So number one, we have a process that's a digital storytelling tutorial. We have an Adobe Youth Voices digital storytelling guide. We also have a guide here for that. It was developed specifically by SAMHSA. We also have a Share Your Story, a guide to share digital storytelling. And then also the digital storytelling cookbook, which was developed by the Center for Digital Storytelling. We also have a lot of free resources here for helpful software, free audio software, video editing, movie making. We recommend if you can get iMovie. It's not free, but personally it's the easiest to me if you have an iMac. Free software here for video editors, Microsoft Movie Maker, and then audio visual resources here. So these are all royalty-free images. If you click on Unsplash, it's like, I use this personally for a lot of things. You can search things like hands or, you know, different things. Like you really can, they have like a ton of free images you can use. There's also free music here, so if you wanted to do free music, or we also have a storyboard blank template. So we have a lot of resources here for you to look at if you're really interested in that. We also have some specific culture as prevention videos, and so I highly recommend that you go online and look at those resources that we've put together for you. If you need more than that, we do provide the TA services, and get with your GTA to kind of talk more about that. And so I don't know if we have any more questions, but it looks like people are kind of leaving naturally. And so I think with that, we'll go ahead and close. I wanted to extend a great thank you to John Bird for opening us up in a good way. And also thank you so much, Janine, for joining us on the call. I appreciate everything that you have to offer. You're such an inspiration, and I get so... Lines are muted, so we heard that. I think that was Hunter. I feel like that was Hunter. And here's also another safe messaging PDF shared by Vernon Mickelson. So I'll make sure to copy this link and get that to you guys for your own thing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.